So boys, welcome to the show. How exciting, our first ever on location show, and at your location, which we'll talk about in a minute. But for our audience today, Cam, Chris, introduce yourselves. So Cameron, start with you and tell us a tiny bit about your company.
Cool, well thanks for having us first off. And so I'm Cameron Grant, it's my brother and co-founder Chris. We founded Unyoked. We basically help people understand the benefits of nature and then help them connect with those in a regular basis through our network of off-the-grid cabins that are tucked in unique locations within 2 hours of the city. Absolutely.
And Chris, why don't you tell everyone where we are in this awesome location today?
Yeah, we're in the sort of mountains off Illawarra here today. We're within a 2-hour trip from the CBD, which we aim for all of our cabins.
It was an hour and 40 for me, so perfect.
Boom. That's what we want to hear. So it's long enough to turn a podcast on and do an episode or two, but not too long that you've got to take extra time off and it becomes arduous. So it's all about convenience and getting out of the city quickly.
Arguably, this should be the podcast you should watch when you are on your way to this location. I feel we should probably put it in as part of the package.
Sort of Inception type thing going on. Yeah,
it's in the onboarding flow.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we've got the fire going, which is quite hot today, but it's pretty cool to have a fire going because it is still winter. Oh no, we're spring now. I think we are spring. Aren't we?
We're officially spring. Yeah.
And so, out of interest, do you find a difference between spring and winter in terms of your bookings or not, or?
No, we've been flat out the whole time, so there's no seasonality so far. Like we feel like personally that summer should be the low season because sometimes it gets pretty hot out here.
Yeah.
But winter, it's so nice and cozy to be in these spots. You get the fire going, you're in the cabin, you've got epic stars as well. It's a great time to come down.
Well, one of the things we love is helping people experience nature in different ways. So whether that's completely different landscapes or whether that's the same landscape at different seasons. So you can come back to this same cabin 4 times a year and you'll experience it differently, and you'll experience the wildlife and the flora and fauna differently. So I think that's something that an everyday Australian needs to be more aware of, the changing climate at different times of year.
Absolutely. All right, Cam, let's start with you. Why don't you give us a little bit of the journey as to how you came to starting this business?
Sure. So I guess we'll go way back to the beginning. So Chris and I are twin brothers.
Identical, obviously.
Yeah, very close. That's what the mustaches to tell us apart. We travelled around Australia a whole bunch growing up. So our dad's job moved us around quite a bit. He was an engineer for carbonated breweries.
Okay.
And then got promoted as we moved around. But basically lived in most cities. The outdoors was one of the constants that we had moving around. So we were like outside national parks, hiking all the time. And then during university, as any Australian does, we were overseas for 3 months a year at the end of the year at holidays and disappearing to really off-the-grid locations. We basically lost the ability to do that when we started entering into our corporate jobs. So I was in the strategy department of Commonwealth Bank.
Yes.
Very different than where
Very different.
No Birkenstocks there, that's for sure. And Chris was scaling the campuses for General Assembly, which is a tech education startup. So here, and then moved over to Singapore just before we launched the business, but while we were getting it off the ground, which we can go into later. But basically, we saw the opportunities to get these experiences where you had trips generally in immersive outdoors, but also trips that made you feel different when you came back disappear because we were so busy, so stressed. You had that guilt on you that the 9 to 5 puts on you. So we wanted to create a way where we could come to somewhere like this, but on a Wednesday or Thursday. So within 2 hours after work, there were no things like that on Airbnb. So we'd be on page 10 on a Wednesday night.
Page 10?
Stressed as hell. Like I had cabin porn on one page of my laptop, and on the monitor I had spreadsheets and just getting spreadsheeted to death. And we just decided to start it ourselves.
Awesome. And Chris, what the name? Where does it come from? Because it's a cool name.
Yeah, so it's a yoke is what connects an animal to a cart, and so to unyoke an animal is to set it free, essentially. And so it's just it's a synonym of what we want to be doing with the business. It represents what we want to be doing for people. We want to be setting people free from the city, free from the desk, free from the chain of 9 to 5, and the sort of modern stresses that the city is putting on the body. We want people to be set back free into an environment that we're supposed to be in. And so it did have an archaic meaning, which was to set free as well. And it's an unusual word which works great for SEO. And so
it would do.
Yeah, that's those sort of points were enough for us to go, boom, that's it.
Okay, and so how do you go from going, okay, I'm sitting here with spreadsheets, I'm on page 10 of eBay. It's a pretty bad day. How do you go from that frustration to actually, starting a business, which is by no easy feat in any area, but particularly in an area like this? And then the concept. Where did the concept come from of being able to do what you do? And I think it would be great if you probably explain the content, the actual context in a bit more detail as to where we are, because we're on private property here. So I'd love you to sort of go through all of that as well.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, just to go to the concept first. So essentially, we wanted to, I guess, open access, regular access for people to disappear into immersive nature, but during their day-to-day. So during the week, don't save up for a holiday at the end of the year. Like, this stuff helps you during your middle of your week, during a month, every quarter.
Yep.
So it needs to be somewhere close. So we realized that there's a lot of, sorry, just getting some smoke.
So you are getting some smoke.
Occupational hazard. We realized there's a ton of really unique properties like this that are owned privately within that sort of 200K radius of a city.
Yep.
And luckily through Airbnb, the sort of sharing economy had really taken off. So there were lots of people that were looking for extra revenue, wanting to share their beautiful properties with people, and also were kind of okay with randoms coming onto it as well. So we targeted the Southern Highlands to start with because it had large median land size.
Yep.
And beautiful sort of subtropical vegetation. So it's kind of like we aimed to delight the first lot of customers. So not just put it in normal Aussie bush, like go for something that really stood out and made like you feel that awe that nature gives you.
Yeah.
So we handed around a whole ton of flyers. And like 10,000 or something flyers. Yep. Built a really basic website that's sort of like a funnel for those guys to come through, and then had a lot of phone calls and site visits essentially to get off the ground.
Where'd you hand out the flyers?
All across the Southern Highlands, really.
Yeah. Just wandering around, just literally everywhere.
Yeah, we used a service that Ozpost did to sort of blanket a bunch, and then we had a ton in the car at all times, and whenever we saw somewhere that we're like, that looks like a long driveway that goes to nowhere, let's chuck one in here.
We did local newspapers and things as well, didn't we?
Yeah, but that, and then we're sort of jumping around a bit, is that all right? But
that's all right.
Yeah,
okay. So,
I mean, the idea of partnering with private landowners, it's sort of one of these. There's a few sort of intersecting purposes of our business, and things that we're really passionate about, and this sort of democratizing the outdoors.
Yep.
and helping get it accessible to the public again. In some respects, it's something that excites us. Large portions of Australia and indeed our other markets like the UK especially, it's owned privately, and so to be able to find places like this that the public hasn't been able to get access to for sometimes hundreds of years, and to be able to partner with the landowner who's also passionate about their land and wants to share it is something that's really cool.
Yeah. It's amazing. And so how do you when you get so let's say you put your flyer out, so you got your first person who's called back from your flyer and going, okay, I want to do it, we're going to go ahead, forget the commercial terms, all that kind of stuff. Where does you go from here? How does it go from a piece of land to, look, this beautiful spot that we're in now, which is obviously very purposely sort of sculpted?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it for sure. So yeah, we these days we have a whole process that we go through. So we get a lot of inbound applications for landowners who want to host an Unyoked cabin, and with thousands of them, and we have sort of set criteria that they're screened for immediately, which is proximity to the city, size of the property. We jump on Google Earth and make sure there's no airports next door, and key red flags that could really mess with your stay. And then if it makes it through that, then we have a phone call with the prospective host where some more questions are asked. If it makes it through that, then we send one of our scouts. We've got a team of scouts around Australia and around the world now whose job it is to jump in the car and go and visit these properties, and then we've got more criteria that they have to meet, and a process of photos and things like that. If it makes it through that stage, it gets presented to a committee of the business heads at Unyoked, and then once it's approved from there, it'll move into sort of site preparation stage, which is where we really try and have minimal impact on the environment, and we want to be able to roll it out of there and the land to be able to go back to what it used to be. So we don't put in any sort of foundations in. We don't put any mains power or mains sewerage. It's all completely off the grid, so it enables us to get essentially the amenities of a little hotel into somewhere which you'd only ever be able to camp normally.
Yeah.
And so the amount of preparation is relatively minimal. It's just creating a flat landing pad that we need to have a water source. So there's usually a water tank that's uphill from the cabin and gravity fed into the cabin. And then the rest is up to our deployment team when they roll the cabin in here and set up the campsite and things like that.
Because they're on wheels, aren't they? They literally are on wheels.
They are, yep. They're mobile, and it means we can get them into all of these awesome places, and unlocking these different types of landscapes around Australia and around the world for our community is what we're all about. So we try and find challenging places. We try and find places where you can't see or hear anything that's human. It's bringing people right back into the natural environment where we belong.
It is very quiet here. I mean, it literally, I was just thinking that it is just silent. There's nothing. It's quite extraordinary.
It's amazing.
Quite extraordinary.
Yeah. And
so, go on.
Oh, that's why we choose some of the places. It's meant to juxtapose fully to your day-to-day in the city, basically.
It's the opposite.
Yeah, you can just rinse off stress. Like, it's like a high-pressure hose for washing stress away. Like, even, just coming up the driveway now, we're in the middle of a fundraising round and just feeling, full on from a lot of work going on, but coming up the driveway, entering into the forest, and then walking down the path, like, that's part of the experience. Like,
when I drove in, I went the wrong way first time. When I drove in and I came through it's almost like you've staged it, right? The way the sort of the trees and the canopy all go over there. So you drive up there, I was thinking we should be filming this. Yeah. And then when you park your car and then you walk down, and the walk down to this one's epic, right? It's a beautiful winding. I was thinking we should be filming this too. So maybe we'll go back and film some of that to share with other people, but you're quite right. That actual arrival experience, it's a bit like when you arrive at a special hotel, right? They make very much an experience. This is an experience, just the arriving. Very different to a hotel, obviously, but it does kind of take you down notches. It almost sort of lands you as you're coming in to sort of be at this level. By the time you get here, you're already pretty relaxed.
Exactly.
Which is extraordinary, I think. Extraordinary.
Yeah. And that's all done by design. That's because, we are so wired up and wound up in our day-to-day because of what work does to us generally, that if you do just, go to a hotel, for example, drive your car, park next door, chuck your stuff straight in, you don't really change like mode or state. You still it'll take you 2 days to sort of relax.
It takes more. I mean, if I go away for a week, and I have children, which makes it that much harder. If I go for a week, I'm just about down by the time we leave, right? So you need to go away for 2.5, 3. So to be able to do that in 2 days is incredibly unusual and so useful, because we never have, who's got time to go away for 3 weeks? Nobody.
Yeah, exactly. And nature does most of that, but we've sort of just taken the time and designed all the steps to help it along, I suppose. So that's why you'll never park your car near the cabin or even see it from the cabin.
Yeah.
Because, that walk, that leaving your city life behind and separating from it, it sounds like small. We call them the little big things, but they make a big difference, especially psychologically.
And so do you think that the ability to be able to do that, right? Do you think that came from your childhood that you talked about earlier, going and traveling and living in all these different places? Is that where you feel, because not everybody can suddenly come and go, right, we know exactly how to take someone down a path, and you're working at CommBank and you're working at a fast growing startup, you wouldn't think naturally that was something that you'd be able to do. So does that come from your childhood, do you think?
It's a good question. We like to learn. So if we want to accomplish something, we usually try and teach ourselves how to do it. So there's been a lot of just learning. There's been some intuition from childhood, I'd say, and understanding. We built it for us originally, and we being able to do that, and then you can really use your intuition and your feelings, because you're impacting yourself. So that really helped, and when we realized it worked for us, then it was easy to see that it will work for other people as well.
Yeah.
And the science behind it is just fascinating. There's academic research that shows that if you spend 2 days in nature, your cortisol levels can drop by 50%. What other thing in the world can do that without taking a drug,
Which is not the route we condone in any way.
No.
That's I did a leadership thing with Harvard about a year ago, and they do these real intensive tests. And I came up as someone who needs to spend time in nature every day to be able to function properly. And apparently 80% of people are like that. If you don't get out, and we're talking not like this, we're talking even just a walk or anything, it really has negative impacts on your long-term health, on your mental health, everything. So you're right, the science is quite extraordinary, but I didn't realize that's incredible.
There's some fascinating stuff out there, really, like on creative problem solving as well. well. There's like empirical research that shows that if you spend 2 days in nature, you can increase your creative problem solving abilities by up to 50%. So imagine if you send a high performer who's already killing it out to the bush for 2 days and they've got a 50% boost.
That's massive.
The potential for it in different walks of life and different use cases is massive, we think.
And we'll come back to that in a minute, actually, because there's something that you mentioned I want to touch on. But before we did that, how did you go and where? So how long have you been around now? How long's the company been going?
6 years now.
6 years, okay.
Yeah.
So how did you go from 10,000 leaflets running around Barrel to where you are today, which is, all across Australia and obviously launching into the UK?
Yeah. So, I mean, we grew organically at first. Cam and I both kept our day jobs, as we called them, for a year and a half or so at the beginning, and sort of brand and experience were the two pillars that we wanted to build the business around, build our moat around essentially. And so we set about building a brand and building an experience that we could be proud of, and didn't scale at the expense of that. And so we probably only had 2 cabins for the first 2 years, and then we brought on some external funding. Cam and I quit our jobs and went full time. Then over the next 2 years, we only grew to about 10 cabins or so. But in that time, we partnered with people like Matthew McConaughey. We had worldwide reach. We were in GQ Korea and Vanity Fair Italy, and so we were building this wide-reaching brand, but we kept our footprint quite small. And then post that, for the last 2 years now, we've increased to 80 cabins.
80? Gosh, is it 80?
So we've sort of,
That's incredible.
800% over the last 2 years in terms of our physical footprint, but in terms of our brand, it's sort of far outstripped.
I mean, you must be coming down here every other day just to keep your stress levels down. That's enormous growth. I mean, that's extraordinary.
Yeah, and that's just the start of it, yeah.
I mean, that's obviously, 6 years, that's the overnight success, the 800 cabins in the last 2 years, as everyone always sees. Exactly. I mean, that's amazing. And now, obviously, you're fundraising again and you're going through another growth. So what's the plan? Tell me what the plan is now, and then I want to come back to something that you mentioned earlier. Cam, what's the plan now?
I mean, the plan, we see ourselves as creating a new category. So it's it's all based around there's a new type of time, I suppose. People are valuing their time differently. So instead of just work and leisure, there's a time in the middle there that's sort of that's you can see in the rise of meditation and everyone that has a meditation app now. We think nature sits squarely in there as well. And we want more people to have a nature habit, essentially. That's what we're trying to do. It's all about raising the awareness of why and how nature helps us, and then why you should do it, and then helping people access that regularly and easily as well. We want to do that on a global scale. So we've been building a brand, like Chris said, from day one, to be more like Patagonia. So creating a brand that represents this sort of set of ideals and a way of living. And then we see Unyoked as being that kind of brand. And it's, it's been awesome and humbling to see that happen along the way. But we sort of want, the original use case going back a bit was us sitting there on a Wednesday night, raining outside, stressed to hell, just jumping on your phone, going next available and being in a space like this. So we're going to keep moving until that's a reality, because right now, even with 80 cabins, we're still pretty full, so you can't actually get in tomorrow if you wanted to. But that's the kind of vision that we're all around the place, so you can sort of move around and get nature when you need it, really. You are full. We had to wait for this cabin to poor people here to leave before we could film. We were hiding around the corner, so we didn't ruin their experience. But, you touched on something earlier in terms of sending high performers and things like that. Have you started talking to corporates about this, and is that a route that you're going to go? It's something we've had in the sort of back pocket for a while now. We've waited till we've had a certain scale, but for us, coming from our corporate backgrounds and then also as having scaled the startup, coming down to these locations and working, it's something that most people don't think about, because you think about nature, recharging, switching off, but it actually helps a lot. You just doing some work, going for a wander around, just being out here, it does, it's scientifically proven to drive your creativity and productivity, but it does help. A lot of corporates are starting to see that, starting to realize you can't just burn people out. In professional sport, they have a term they call it periodization, where an athlete training for something, they won't train at 100% every day. They'll switch off, switch back on. In high performing teams and corporate culture, you don't have that. You're just
You just go,
get a walk.
just go.
Exactly, yeah. So people are starting to realize that sustainable high performance is where it's at. And to be able to get that, you have to switch off and you have to use different locations. So we want to help them do that. So yeah, we've got a sort of budding enterprise program that we have. We call Recharge Days, which sort of plugs into the corporate's HR program and then helps them send people down based on sort of the intensity of their work and the type of the work.
So do you think, sorry, go on.
I was just going to add an interesting statistic is that absenteeism cost Australian businesses $6 billion last year alone. Jesus. And so to curb that and the loss of productivity in a team when someone has to take a mental health day, it's now the employer's responsibility. It's not just the individual's responsibility.
Very much so.
And so yeah, we want to be working with all sorts of corporate enterprise programs to be able to help get their teams out to nature and to decrease that statistic.
Do you think you can see that? I guess what the working from home model that has come in, the hybrid model, has probably helped because it's made it more acceptable to sometimes the people at the top that they're not in the office every day. So I know at the moment, we've got 3 cabins, I think, on this property. Is that right? I think there are 3. Mm-hmm. The other 2 are nowhere to be seen, right? And that's the idea, is that you don't see those, and that's the whole point. Yeah. Do you think you'll ever group them together to have, because corporate retreats and offsites are becoming massive, right? Do you think you'll ever have some where you might have 4 or 5, so you get an exec team come down and they can work together, or do you think you'll always keep them separate? I don't know. Is that something you thought about?
It is, yeah. It's a good question, and we do have some in the works that are like that.
Yeah.
It's still under construction.
Yep.
So we haven't launched the concept yet, but yeah,
they'll go off. They will go off.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to be just booked out.
We've already got some of our corporate partners who are in line to book them out. So
no question.
Yeah,
we'll go work there ourselves with our team. That's most of the time.
We'll come and film you at that one for a week. We'll come and film for a week. We'll follow you around for a week just so we can stay there.
Yeah.
Because you've got pet ones as well, right? You've got ones where you can have pets too. So you really are. There's a heap of categories within your category, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's just about making this sort of nature accessible and sort of breaking down the barriers. Like, people think that they don't have the time, and helping them realize you do have the time. Like, you drove here in less time than streaming 2 episodes, which most people do most nights.
That's true.
So instead of just sitting on the couch and vegging out, you can literally jump in your car and be somewhere like this and wake up somewhere like this. And removing the other friction points like accessibility, making them comfortable. Like, to be honest, that's why we chose cabins to do it, is because cabins enable you to be in this space but use it for multiple different reasons.
And these are not normal. These are not log cabins. I've seen the beds in there.
Yeah.
We'll put some pictures in we'll put some links around the video, but they're nice cabins. You could easily sit in there with a bottle of champagne and a loved one for a whole weekend and not have to. Let's not get into that, but not have to go anywhere. But they're beautifully done, and they're very comfortable, right? Which I think is the key thing. So let's talk a little bit about the design inside. These are incredibly luxurious. As much as they're minimalist, they're beautiful inside. The beds. Explain to everyone what's actually in them, and we'll put some links so people can see them. But what was the thought process in terms of what you put in there? It's not a rough and ready cabin by any means.
No, this is I think 10th generation cabin or so.
Yeah.
So we solicit a lot of feedback from our guests and our community, and we do a lot of product testing, and then we iterate on sort of usability. So it's designed to have everything that you need to have a comfortable stay, serviceability, so that our maintenance teams can get them up to scratch and can easily solve any problems, and then longevity and sustainability are the other points. And so they're architecturally designed. They are a small space, that they are designed with minimalism in mind. We don't want any waste. We don't need any bells and whistles, but we've made sure that the bed is an awesome bed. We've got a collaboration with Koala that we've had for years.
Oh, yeah.
Koala provides the beds for us, and that you can just have a great night's sleep there, because that's really important to recharging. The kitchens as well. We worked with the 3 Blue Ducks guys really early on to sort of kit out what you'd need.
You've got some great partnerships going
in the cabin. Yeah, no, we're lucky enough that this is something that sort of everyone wants to get behind when they hear about it. So it's not tough to get good people to work with, which is great, and we've worked with some amazing people along the journey. But
it all comes down to that experience again, because there's things like the coffee's always been a big thing for us, because it is a ritual that people do, but well, we've tried to get people to I guess connect with the ritual, less the routine.
Yep.
So less than just your like shitty Nespresso or your crappy Nespresso in the morning.
We can edit that.
Yeah.
The Nespresso in the morning.
Nespresso in the mornings. Less than your Nespresso in the mornings, and more the ritual of slowing down and enjoying that coffee. So we actually have always just had hand ground coffee in there.
Can you grind your own in there as well?
You have to.
That's
you
cool.
have to grind your own. So
well, you got the time.
yeah, exactly. And you wake up, whether you're sitting in the bed with your sun on your face, or you come out and hang your legs over that little deck.
I know, it's cool. I did it this morning.
Yeah. You just grind it slowly, and at first, you're working for it, but after like 2 seconds, you're like, actually, because it forces you to connect with what you're doing more, you take into like in the place that you're in and everything as well. So there's all elements of that. Same as like the food, we sort of try and get people to cook on the campfire. So there's some utensils there, and we designed some recipes with Sarah Glover, who's a sort of well-known wilderness chef, to share those through everyone as well. So all about slowing down and I guess bringing the outside in.
And have you got different environments? Obviously, we're here up in the mountains in the forest. It's a super cool forest, by the way.
Yeah, beautiful.
But have you got any near the beach? Like if you had someone who wanted to surf, or you got all types of different ones?
We do, part of what we're passionate about is unlocking every type of landscape that exists. So, so our community can go around and experience what nature has to offer. So we've got some that are closer to beaches. We've got some amazing ones over in WA just launching that are right on the beach.
Cool.
Like we've got some in the mountains, in sort of more desert type locations, in fields, in everything that we can find. We want to unlock that as long as it's raw wilderness and and you get that escapism from the city.
Cool. All right. Yeah. Well, it's all sounded like a daydream, but I always like to bring this question up. I want to know perhaps the thing that was hardest for you. What was the biggest challenge that you had to overcome, and what was probably the thing that you didn't see coming that really sort of smashed you between the eyes, which is the joys of building a business. Mm-hmm. And then also the thing you learned the most overcoming that.
Yeah, okay.
Either of you can go for that one. Who's game for that? It's a tough question.
It is a tough question. I mean, we've had a lot of challenges, right? Cameron and I talk about the analogy that building a startup is like jumping off a cliff and building a plane before you get to the bottom. And I'm sure you've heard that before.
I have heard that many times.
It's a very good analogy. It's apt, and lots of things are coming at you while you're falling down, which we enjoy. We like the pace, we like the challenge. So nothing's ever been insurmountable. We've had COVID, we've had floods, we've had fires. We're very susceptible to the elements and weather. And
climate change is not your friend.
No.
By design. It's we're doing hard things.
Hard things are hard, right? So lots of challenges. Learning how fundraising works, and going through those cycles, and starting with sort of angel investors, and then going to high net worth, and now looking
Isn't that
at
an awful experience?
looking at institutions.
It's
awful.
It's nothing good about it.
It's a grind, it really is, but it's something that we've got to do to help us achieve what we want to achieve in the business.
But I think one of the biggest learnings that's also like basically everything we've learned is a cliche, and you find out why it's a cliche when you've learned it, and you're like, oh yeah, obviously this is really obvious. But one of the obvious ones is that you have to actually enjoy and be into what you're building. Like that's the one that everyone just that like rolls your eyes at. But you do need to be passionate, because you do a lot of stuff, and it's always on. Like we've built a business that's about switching off, but it's ironic. Like there have been peak times where it's hard for us to switch off. So I can't imagine other people. But back at the beginning, especially, for example, like I was still working at Commonwealth Bank. We had our first cabin up and running. We were doing the cleaning and maintenance and stuff ourselves, so we could learn the systems and design
after work,
and help it be scalable. Yeah, well, I was before work, so I'd drive.
Even better.
Before like a pitch to the head of the strategy department at the bank, and be going down in my work clothes, so my suit, and then emptying a composting toilet, and then driving back from Kangaroo Valley.
Don't you wish you'd filmed that for content now? That would have been so good.
I know. And I'm like, okay, just when it gets tough now, like, okay, at least you're not doing that.
Yeah, at least.
We have people that do that now. So there's all those kind of things, but it's, you have to start building it with your hands, and we have that with our team now. Is like, I think it's another Reid Hoffman. Oh no, it's Paul Graham, the do things that don't scale.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of our mantras, is do things that don't scale. at scale.
Yeah.
Because that's how you build something, you know, with your hands, with love, that then actually makes a difference, and you work out how to scale that after. But it does mean that you do a lot of hard work doing that.
It does, and look, I interview a lot of founders, as you know. I meet probably 4 or 5 founders every week, and the ones that are really going, it doesn't have to be their passion, but they have to enjoy it and be passionate about it, if that makes sense. So they could be, their passion could be surfing, but they might love gardening. You know, it's got to be something that you enjoy doing, otherwise it's just too hard. You just wouldn't do it to yourself.
Exactly.
So how many staff have you got now? And is everyone based here, or are you remotely, or how's that structured?
We've got 17 in the team now, and we've got some here. We've got some in the Philippines. We've got some in New Zealand, one in New Zealand, and some in the UK.
Cool. And now, as you continue to scale, there's going to be people who are going to be interested, and they're going to want to come and work for you guys. So, who wants to answer this question? You know, why should someone want to come and work for Unyoked? Who's the salesman when it comes to hiring staff?
Probably both of us, to be honest. But
well, give us an answer each. Start with you, Cam.
Yeah. We like to. There's another saying that's like, it's not a unicorn, but it's a rabbit. It's a real, actual business building interesting things.
I've never heard that before.
And that's kind of what we see ourselves as. And you know, we've built the company based on a way that we want to work and what we want to do. Like, we are high growth, but we are more like, you know, again, sounds cliched, but we're more like a group of friends than a bunch of colleagues and bosses. We've been very careful on the culture. It's enjoyable in the office. It's also cool to be working on something that actually is, you know, making a difference for people. It's not like, you know, not Facebook making a difference doing stuff. It's like, you know that when people are out here in nature, they are feeling better, and you see it all coming through from our feedback and everything like that. And that's kind of cool. And every time we go out for team events and things like that, like we were up at one of our new cabins out near Mudgee 2 weeks ago with the team for a night.
I was in Mudgee 2 weeks ago. It was freezing.
Yeah, it was cold, freezing. Yeah,
I slept in a tent, and the sleeping bag wasn't up to the challenge, so it was very cold.
I was up there for a rugby thing for my son, so I was in a hotel, thank God. But yeah, so you took the whole team up.
Yeah, so we took the whole team there. We do it quite frequently, but you're just reminded of what we're doing when you're there. So, you know, even in the office, you can put your heads down pretty hard sometimes, but when we get out there and we're like, okay, this is what we're doing, this is important, and it's actually good.
That's cool. And let's hear yours.
Yeah, I mean, he's
got to top that now.
He's said most of it, but you know, we've been lucky enough. I think the last couple of job ads we've put out, we've had hundreds of applicants come back. So
you can see why it's an incredibly compelling story.
And you know, we have fun while we're doing. We're very humbled by that sort of that sort of response by people, and you know, we're just looking for like-minded people who enjoy. Or who will enjoy to be part of the team and
enjoy smoke.
Yeah,
it's coming your way.
It's coming my way.
Building something, we look for people who show initiative and just like to have fun in our day-to-day. So
fantastic, boys! Thank you so much, for coming on the show, and it's going to be great. I can't wait to get this up. You know, as I think I said to you when I first met you, I love doing episodes of companies that are different. You know, we do a lot of just tech. It's so good to do this. We got to come here, which is awesome. We're spending the rest of the day here as well, which is even better. Cool. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I wish you the best of luck with your UK expansion and the rest, and building that brand. I wish you the best of luck with that fundraising. Maybe in a year, 18 months, we'll get you back on in one of those massive group cabins, and we'll bring the whole team. Who knows?
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we'd love that.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much.
Cheers.